أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Lesson number 289, Surah At-Talaq, ayah number 1 to 12. Surah At-Talaq is a Madani surah. What does the word talaq mean? Divorce. And what's the literal meaning of the word talaq? To release, to let go. So, in other words, talaq, divorce, what does it symbolize? Separation. That two people who were together are now separated from one another. Two people who were living in the same house will no longer live together anymore. And what is the cause behind that? Why is it that two people separate from one another? They were married before, but they're no longer married. What's the reason behind that? Differences in tolerance. Because differences exist between people. But when two people are no longer able to tolerate one another, then what happens? They cannot stay together anymore. So as a result, they separate from one another. And in the case of the husband and wife, what does that result in? Divorce. If you think about it, a family is a small unit of society. It's the smallest unit of society. Many families together, what do they make? A society. A community. And what happens to a family affects the society as well. So what happens between two individuals, what happens between a couple, is definitely going to have an effect on the entire society. It's not possible that two people are divorced and it doesn't have any effect on their family members. No, it will have a huge impact on them. We see that relatives get affected, children get affected, brothers and sisters, parents, distant relatives. Isn't it so? It's like as though the entire society is divided into two after a divorce. It's not just the two people who have separated from one another. So we see that when a small unit has problems, when a home shatters, then it impacts the entire society. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has created people with different personalities, different characteristics, different abilities. And sometimes the clash between people's personalities does not let them stay together anymore. Isn't it so? It's not necessary that two people who are getting divorced from one another, both of them are evil, or one of them is evil. It's not necessary. It's quite possible that just because they are very different, just because they're not compatible with one another, this is why they cannot stay with one another, and as a result, it results in divorce. And we see that where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided us with regards to marriage, He has also guided us with regards to divorce. Because divorce, okay, it may be disliked, however, it is a reality. It is a fact. And in some cases, it is needed. In some cases, it becomes necessary. Because if two individuals who don't like one another, who are unable to give the rights of each other, are forced to live together, then their life would be a living hell. Isn't it so? And their life would be extremely difficult, and they would also affect other people. So where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides us with regards to nikah, He also guides us with regards to divorce. And this surah mentions certain matters which are with regards to divorce. Now, one thing that I want you to notice is that in the khutbah of nikah, when two people are getting together, have you heard the khutbah nikah? What is mentioned again and again? Taqwa. Right? Similarly, over here in this surah, divorce is being mentioned, and you will notice taqwa is mentioned repeatedly as well. What does it show? That when people come together, when people are living together, what is necessary? The fear of Allah. And when people are separating from one another, then again, what is necessary? The fear of Allah. Because if the fear of Allah is not there, if people don't fear Allah when they're living together or when they're separating from one another, then what will this lead to? A lot of injustices committed against one another. And we see that a believer's entire life is ibadah. Every single role that a believer plays in his life, through that he's coming closer to Allah. Through that he's actually worshipping Allah. So whether it is the act of marriage or it is the act of divorce, how should it be? According to how Allah wants it to be. So that even this action becomes what? A means of coming closer to Allah. Isn't that amazing? Because divorce is looked at as something that's so evil in our society, isn't it? But when Allah has given us guidance with regards to it, what does it mean? That when a person follows that guidance, it will in fact bring him closer to Allah. And we see this, that people who are very careful about the commands of Allah, even with regards to divorce, they come out of divorce not shattered and ruined. No, they come out having learned something, having improved in their relationship with their Lord. It's amazing. The same experience could ruin someone, could destroy someone, and the same experience could increase a person's iman so much, depending on if he has adhered to the commands of Allah or not. And in the previous surah, we learned about the fact that one's spouses and children, they can be enemies to a person. Isn't it so? When is it that they become enemies to a person? When they make it difficult for him to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When they become a great test for him, that because of them he disobeys Allah. So sometimes it happens that because of hatred, dislike for one's spouse, a person disobeys Allah. Isn't it so? Meaning he does not follow the proper rules of talaq, for example. This is why we see where on one hand we have been told, ta'fu, tasfahu, taghfiru, that should be done. However, if it's not possible for two people to live together anymore, then the solution of divorce is also there. And that solution should also be followed how? The way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. Not that a person follows his own desires, but rather he follows the commands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. Why? Because if a person does not follow the rules of talaq, then what will that lead to? It will affect the entire society. Remember, it's not just injustice being committed against the other individual. No. Children will get affected. Family members will get affected. It will affect the entire society. Therefore, for the good of oneself and for the good of others, what should a person do? No matter what situation in life he is in, he should follow the commands that Allah has given. Ibn Mas'ud radhiyallahu anhu, he said that Surah At-Talaq was revealed after Surah Al-Baqarah. You may wonder that in Surah Al-Baqarah we learned about talaq in so much detail. If you remember, so much detail we learned about how talaq is to be given and what the iddah is, the different scenarios of iddah, depending on the kind of marriage and depending on if consummation was done or not. Isn't it so? We learned a lot of detail about talaq. He said that it was revealed after Surah Al-Baqarah, and from another narration we learned that when people were having difficulties in understanding and in applying the rulings of talaq, afterwards Surah At-Talaq was revealed. So Surah At-Talaq basically, it further clarifies the issues of talaq. You understand? It further clarifies the matters of talaq. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu, O Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, إِذَا طَلَّقْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ, when you divorce women, فَطَلِّقُوهُنَّ لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ, then divorce them for the commencement of their waiting period. Who is being addressed? The Prophet ﷺ. But then if you look at the hukum, إِذَا طَلَّقْتُمْ, tum, this is in plural. Isn't it so? So what does it show? That although the Prophet ﷺ is being addressed over here, but the command is general. The command is general. It is for all believers to follow. It doesn't mean that only the Prophet ﷺ was required to follow this. No. This means that every single believer is required to follow it. Remember that whenever the Prophet is addressed in the Quran, I told you that it's understood in 3 different ways. One is that the hukum is exclusively for him. Another is that it is for him and for others. And another is that it is for him and for others. However, it's mentioned for him. Only his name is mentioned. Why? To show the importance of that hukum. To show how necessary it is to follow that. Because if you think about it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have said, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu as well. But why is Ya ayyuhan nabi said? To honor the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to also show the importance of observing this hukum properly. Because if the Prophet is required to follow it, then what does it mean for the rest of the people? What does it mean for the rest of the people? Even they are required to follow it. If anyone would be exempt, who would it be? It would be him. Isn't it? But when he is mentioned, what does it show? it's all the more necessary for the rest of the believers to follow this hukum. Some have said that Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu, the address is to him exclusively over here to show that the ummah must follow in his footsteps, in his sunnah. And some have said that what this means is that قُلْ لَهُمْ, say to the believers. That's implied. So Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu, O Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the fact is that those who follow the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam closely, carefully, it is only such people who will also observe this hukum. What is the hukum? That إِذَا طَلَّقْتُمُ النِّسَاء, when you divorce women. Meaning, when you intend to give divorce to your wife. When you have made up your mind. You understand? When you've made up your mind, إِذَا طَلَّقْتُمُ النِّسَاء. It's not that you have already given the divorce, and now the hukum is being given. No. إِذَا طَلَّقْتُم means when you aradtum, when you intend to give the divorce, when you have made up your mind. This is just like in the Quran we learn, إِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنِ, when you recite the Quran, meaning when you intend to recite the Quran. Similarly, إِذَا قُمْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ, when you stand for prayer, what does it mean? When you intend to perform the salah, then perform wudu. You understand? You don't perform wudu after you stand for salah, isn't it? When do you perform wudu? When you make the intention, when you make up your mind to pray. So similarly, when you have made up your mind, when you've made up that decision that you are going to divorce the wife, then how are you going to carry it out? How are you going to give her the divorce? Allah says, فَطَلِّقُوهُنَّ, then divorce them, لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ, at the commencement of their iddah. Iddah is from the root letters, Ain, Dal, Dal, and you know that iddah is the waiting period. What is it? The waiting period, which a woman has to go through after she is given divorce, or in the case where her husband dies. And this waiting period varies from woman to woman in the sense that depending on the case, if the marriage was consummated or not, if the woman is divorced or she is widowed, the iddah differs depending on the type of the mutallaqa. And over here, لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ, this lam is understood as lam of tawqeet. What does tawqeet mean? It's from the word waqt. And waqt is time. So this shows that لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ, meaning give them divorce at a time from where they can begin their iddah. Give them divorce at a time from where they can commence their iddah, at the beginning of their iddah. In such a state from where they can start their iddah. And what is that state? That state is that of tuhur, of purity. Meaning, a woman should not be menstruating when her husband gives her divorce. Rather, she should be in the state of purity. And secondly, it should be such tuhur in which marital relations have not been established with the wife. Do you understand? Because if marital relations have been established, then the husband is not allowed to give divorce to her. You understand? So what is the right time to give divorce? In the state of tuhur, in which no relations have been established with the wife. Why? So that the iddah can be counted properly. Because if you think about it, we have learned earlier, وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتُ يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوء. How much is the iddah of a woman, of a divorced woman? 3 menstrual cycles. Now, if a woman is given her divorce during her period, then is she going to start her iddah from that period or from the next period? You understand? I mean, it's difficult, it's confusing, and the total iddah becomes longer. So the right time to give divorce is when? In the state of tuhur. And this kind of divorce is what? Divorce that is masnoon. That is according to the sunnah. And if a person gives divorce in hayd, meaning while a woman is menstruating, or in the tuhur in which he has established relations with her, then this kind of talaq is talaq bid'i. Bid'i, from bid'ah. And according to some scholars, this talaq does not have any value in the sense that if a man gives divorce to his wife in the state of menstruation, then that talaq will not have any effect, according to some scholars. And according to other scholars, it will have an effect, meaning it will actually be counted as one divorce. But over here, what's the point? فَطَلِّقُوهُنَّ لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ. What's the point? That do not be hasty in giving divorce. Now, for example, if a woman is menstruating, the husband makes up his mind, I'm going to divorce her. He has to wait. Until when? Until she finishes her period. Isn't it? Similarly, if she is in the state of tuhur, in which relations were established, he has to wait for her to have her period and then become clean again, and then he can give her divorce. What does it show? That a man cannot be hasty in giving divorce to his wife. Because typically, how do people give divorce? In a very emotional state. Isn't it so? When they're upset, when they're angry. But what do we learn? That the man has to control himself. He has to control his tongue. If he has made up his mind he wants to give divorce, he can't just go and say it like that. He has to wait. He has to wait for the right time. And notice how the address is, Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu. What does it show? That those people who follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ carefully, it is only such people who will be able to follow this hukum as well. Because those people who follow their desires, they will not be able to wait until the right time. Rather, what will they do? Whenever they're angry, whenever they're upset, they will shout out the words of talaq immediately. So, فَطَلِّقُوهُنَّ لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said with regards to this, that he does not divorce her while she is on her menses, nor while she is pure if he has had intercourse during that purity. Rather, he leaves her until she has her menses, and after the menses ends, then he divorces her once. How many times will he divorce her? Once. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he said, purity without intercourse, meaning that is the time to give divorce. In the state of purity, without intercourse. So, فَطَلِّقُوهُنَّ لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ. And there's also great hikmah behind this. That why is it that a man has to give divorce at a time when a woman is in the state of tuhur? Because while she is menstruating, she is already very sensitive. Isn't it so? And it's not fair that in that state of being extremely sensitive, a woman is given such difficult news, such harsh news. So the man has to wait. And another hikmah is that if she is pregnant, the wife is pregnant, then that pregnancy should also be known. Meaning, why is it that iddah has to be counted properly? Because over here, فَطَلِّقُوهُنَّ لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ, give the divorce at the time from where iddah can begin. Why? So that iddah can be counted. Why? So that if the woman is pregnant, it is well known whose child she is carrying. Because if there is no concept of iddah, and the woman is divorced like that, she goes away, she gets married, then what will happen? Lineage of the child will not be preserved. So فَطَلِّقُوهُنَّ لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ وَأَحْصُوا الْعِدَّةِ, and also count their iddah. أحصو, ha, sad, ya, from the word ihsa. And ihsa is to keep count. And this word is derived from the word hasa, which is pebbles, to throw pebbles, small stones. The Arabs, they would keep count of important things how? With pebbles. They didn't write the number, they didn't keep any other record, but rather what would they do? They would collect rocks together, small rocks, and with that they could figure out, okay, this much we have, or this much has been done. You understand? How do we keep count of a number? By writing it down. But they wouldn't write down. What would they use? Pebbles, small stones. So, وَأَحْصُوا الْعِدَّةِ, meaning keep record of the iddah. Why should you keep record of the iddah? What does it mean by keeping record of the iddah, by the way? Meaning that once a talaq is given, then wait for the next menstrual cycle, then wait for the next one, and then the third one after that. Don't be like, okay, is this your second one or the third one or the fourth one? No. Keep count of it. Make sure you're at the top of it, because sometimes people are careless with regards to this matter. So be very careful with regards to it. Why? Why is it necessary to keep count of iddah? Because a lot of things depend on this. For instance, first of all, if a man wishes to take back his wife, do rujur, does he need to know when their iddah ends? Does he need to know? Yes, he does. Because if he does not keep count of iddah, and after their iddah is over, then he ends up doing rujur, is that permissible? Not at all. It would be considered zina. Because once their iddah is over, and a man goes to that woman, this is not correct. You understand? So, keep count of iddah so that you know when your time expires. And if you want to take her back, you can take her back within the right time. Similarly, وَأَحْصُ الْعِدَّةِ Why? So that a woman also knows when she is free from that man. If 3 months have gone by, 3 menstrual periods have gone by, he did not reconcile with her, then what does it mean? She's free to marry somebody else. Isn't it so? Similarly, the man has to know until when he is to provide for that woman. Because during their iddah, the man is responsible for providing accommodation as well as expenditure on that woman during the period of iddah. But if they don't keep count of iddah, so how will he know? You understand? When he's supposed to stop giving rent, for example. He has to know when he will stop providing for the woman. Similarly, if a man has 4 wives, he's divorced the 4th one, and he's keeping count of her iddah, he has to know about it in case he wants to marry another woman in her place. You understand? Because he cannot marry another woman unless the iddah of the 4th one is complete. So, وَأَحْصُ الْعِدَّةِ Keep count of the iddah. Now, with regards to talaq bid'i, what is talaq bid'i? That talaq which is given in the state when a woman is impure, or in the tuhur in which relations were established with her. According to some scholars, it will count as divorce. But according to other scholars, they say that no, it will not be considered as divorce. These words are meaningless. Meaning if a man pronounces divorce to his wife while she's menstruating, it will not have any effect, it will not be counted as divorce. And what's the evidence behind that? In Bukhari it is narrated that Abdullah ibn Umar, he divorced his wife during the lifetime of Allah's Messenger ﷺ while she was menstruating. She was menstruating and he pronounced divorce on her. Umar radiallahu anhu, he mentioned this to Allah's Messenger, and the Prophet ﷺ became extremely upset, and he said, order him to take her back. Order him to take her back and keep her until she is clean from her menses, and then to wait until she gets her next period and becomes clean again. Then if he wishes to divorce her, he can divorce her when she is clean from her menses. So what do we learn from the hadith? The Prophet ﷺ said, take her back, and you have to wait for the right time. When the right time comes, only then you divorce her. Do you understand? So the Prophet ﷺ told him that he has to take her back. Okay? And he has to wait until her period is over. And then when the right time comes, لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ, only then he should divorce her if he wishes to divorce her. So from the hadith, what do we learn? That those words of talaq were not considered as talaq. Otherwise, what would happen? He would say, okay, count the iddah. But he didn't say start the iddah. You understand? He didn't say that. He said wait for the right time and then give the divorce. So, according to some scholars, it will be counted as divorce, but according to other scholars, it will not be counted as divorce. And this seems to be the stronger opinion. Why? Because this hadith is very clear. And it's reported in Bukhari, so there's no doubt about its authenticity either. And remember that, فَطَلِّقُوهُنَّ لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ, how is a man supposed to give divorce to his wife? By pronouncing divorce 1,000 times? 3 times at once? No. How is it supposed to be? By pronouncing divorce only once. He cannot say, I give you 3 divorces. Okay? How will he give it? I give you divorce, and that will be considered as 1 divorce. We learn from a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, he was informed that a person had pronounced 3 divorces on his wife in one sitting. To say that, final divorce. Divorce, divorce, divorce. So that means you're absolutely haram on me. The Prophet ﷺ, when he found out, he stood up in anger. He stood up out of anger and he said, are the people playing with the book of Allah although I am present among you? People are playing with the book of Allah? So yes, divorce is 3 times altogether, the final divorce, but it is incorrect to give 3 divorces in one sitting. What is the proper way? Pronounce it only once. Similarly, we learn from another hadith. Ubadah bin As-Samit, he said that his father pronounced 1,000 divorces on his wife. Sometimes people do that out of being emotional and extremely upset to show that you're absolutely haram on me. He went before the Prophet ﷺ and asked his ruling on it. So he replied, by the 3 divorces, the woman stood separated from him. Meaning, by the 3 divorces, okay, the woman is separate now. Along with Allah's disobedience, meaning this man has also disobeyed Allah. And 997 pronouncement remained as acts of injustice and sin. 997 pronouncement remained as acts of injustice and sin, for which Allah might punish him if He so willed, and forgive him if He so willed. What does it show to us? That a person has to control his emotions. He has to control his anger at the time of giving divorce. He cannot be hasty. If he's made up his mind, okay, he's allowed to do that. However, he has to wait for the right time and he has to give it in the right way as well. Because if he doesn't do that, he's committing injustice. And in fact, who is he harming? Himself. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ رَبَّكُمْ, and fear Allah who is your Lord. Fear Allah meaning obey Him in His commandments and prohibitions. And then once the divorce has been pronounced, then لَا تُخْرِجُوهُنَّ مِن بُيُوتِهِنَّ, do not expel them from their houses. This is in the case of talaq al-raj'i, the revocable divorce, which is the first and the second one. You remember? The first and the second divorce, this is talaq al-raj'i. What does it mean? It's revocable, that the man can do rujur in their iddah. And the third one is which one? Ba'in, right? The final divorce, irrevocable, which means that in their iddah, afterwards a man cannot do any rujur. Okay? So, لَا تُخْرِجُوهُنَّ مِن بُيُوتِهِنْ, while the women are in their iddah, do not expel them, do not drive them out of their houses. Until when? Until their iddah is over. You understand? So for example, a man pronounces divorce to his wife. He cannot say, okay, leave now. No. She has to stay in her house with him until their iddah is over. If he does rujur, okay, they're together. If he does not rujur, then at the end of their iddah, then she leaves. You understand? So, لَا تُخْرِجُوهُنَّ مِن بُيُوتِهِنْ. And what does it mean by their houses? Meaning the houses that they have been living in. What does it show over here? That the house of a woman is which one? The husband's house. And she has right over that house as well. So, لَا تُخْرِجُوهُنَّ مِن بُيُوتِهِنْ. And this also shows to us that it's the responsibility of the man to still provide for the woman in her iddah. You understand? It's the responsibility of the husband to financially support the woman in her iddah. So, لَا تُخْرِجُوهُنَّ مِن بُيُوتِهِنْ. وَلَا يَخْرُجْنَ, and even they should not go out themselves. Because sometimes what happens? Either the husband says leave, or the girl's family says, we cannot bear this insult, you're coming home with us. Or she says, this is terrible, I cannot tolerate you anymore, I'm leaving. No. What do we learn from here? That the man cannot expel her and she cannot go out herself. You understand? She has to stay in that house. And if she goes out, then what would that be? What would that be? Disobedience to Allah. إِلَّا أَن يَأْتِينَ بِفَاحِشَةٍ مُبَيِّنَةٍ, unless they commit a clear fahisha, a clear act of indecency. In that case, it would be okay for them to go out. In that case, it would be okay for them to be driven out of the house. Now, what is this fahishatin mubayyina? Fahishatin mubayyina, generally the word fahisha is used for what in the Quran? Zina. Isn't it so? So, in the case where the woman has committed zina, then she will be expelled from the house of the husband. Why? In order for the punishment to be carried out on her. She cannot stay there anymore, but rather the punishment will be carried out on her. But let's say she committed zina, she is expecting. Now, what do we learn? That is the had going to be carried out on the woman while she's expecting? No. But why should her husband look after her when she committed zina with someone else? Do you understand? So in that case again, إِلَّا أَن يَأْتِينَ بِفَاحِشَةٍ. So in that case, such a woman may be expelled from the house of the husband. She should be told to leave and she should go and spend her iddah elsewhere. Some have said that فَاحِشَةٍ مُبَيِّنَةٍ over here refers to being abusive towards the husband, being abusive towards his family. And, when a woman, she becomes extremely rude in her speech, and she is being abusive with him. Remember we learned about nushuz? So she doesn't listen to him, she doesn't speak nicely to him, she's rude with his mother, she's rude with his family. So in that case, if she stays in that house, what is it going to lead to? More and more fasad. Isn't it so? More and more arguments. So in that case, it's okay if she is sent away. But on minor disputes, on little issues, is it okay for the woman to spend her iddah elsewhere? No, it's not okay. It's only in extreme cases, to avoid more problems. So in that case, where will the woman spend her iddah? Elsewhere. Not in the house of the husband, but somewhere else. إِلَّا أَن يَأْتِينَ بِفَاحِشَةٍ مُبَيِّنَةٍ. وَتِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ. And these are the limits set by Allah. Meaning all of these ahkam that have been mentioned over here, which ones? When to give divorce, count their iddah, do not expel the woman, and the man having to take care of the expenditure during their iddah. All of this is what? Hudud of Allah. Meaning the commands, the rulings that Allah has given. وَمَن يَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ. And whoever transgresses the limit set by Allah, فَقَدْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. Then in fact he is doing zulm on who? On himself. Because the one who does not follow the rules of Allah, what does he think? That he can be unjust towards other people. Right? This is why he doesn't follow the rules of Allah. But what do we see? A person is in fact harming who? Himself. Because who will suffer the consequences in dunya and akhirah? Who will suffer its consequences? Himself. Isn't it? Because all of these ahkam that Allah has given, there is wisdom behind that. For example, why is it that the woman should spend their iddah in the house of the husband? So that perhaps he would be inclined towards her and perhaps their marriage can be saved. Right? But if a man says, no, go out. I cannot tolerate you anymore, I cannot see you, go to your parents' house. Okay, she goes and spends their iddah over there. He doesn't do rujur with her, and finally, the marriage comes to an end. Now who will suffer the consequences? Who will be regretful later on? That man. That man will have regrets later. That why did I do this? Which is why we see many times this happens, and then later on, the husband goes and apologizes, and then again nikah takes place. So, who will suffer when he does not follow the commands of Allah? The person himself. فَقَدْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. How? That he will suffer the consequences in dunya and also in akhirah. Allah says, لَا تَدْرِي. You do not know. Meaning follow the rules that Allah has given you, because you never know. لَعَلَّ اللَّهَ. Perhaps Allah يُحْدِثُ. He will bring about بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ. After that, أَمْرًا. A new matter. Make sure you follow the rules of Allah, because you never know, Allah may bring about something new. Yuhdisu, from the root letters, ha, dal, sa, hudus. Hudus is to happen, to occur. And hadatha is when something comes into existence that was not there before. So it's quite possible that Allah will cause something new to happen. And what is this amra, this new thing that could happen after the talaq? This could be reconciliation, reunion. Because if a man gives 3 divorces in one sitting, for example, then would that allow for him to get back with the wife afterwards? No, according to one opinion, right? But if he gives 1 divorce following the proper rules, then it's quite possible that later on he gets back with his wife. Isn't it? So you never know, لَعَلَّ اللَّهَ يُحْدِثُ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ أَمْرًا. This amr has also been understood as love in the heart of the husband for his wife. You never know. That you hate her, which is why you want to divorce her. But out of the fear of Allah, you wait for the right time. And then you counter iddah as well. You never know, Allah may put love in the heart of the husband for the wife. So because of that, by the time she comes in the state of tuhur so that he can give divorce, he changes his mind. You understand? Similarly, by the time he gives her divorce and she's in her iddah, in his house, he feels bad. And then he does rujur. It's quite possible. So don't take matters in your hand. Why? Because what will that result in? Injustice and regrets and suffering. But if you follow the commands of Allah, you never know. Allah will bring about something new to happen. Because nothing in this dunya is permanent. Happiness, it goes away. Anger, it goes away. Isn't it so? Frustration, even that goes away. So it's quite possible you're upset right now, but tomorrow, things will be different. So make sure you follow the commands of Allah. لَعَلَّ اللَّهَ يُحْدِثُ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ أَمْرًا.